Now we're on Daf Nun Amid Beis, and we're going to start the Gemara. And Itmar, the Gemara presents the following machlokas between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Eina. We don't know who holds what. Chad Tani Sho'eva, the Chad Tani Hashuva. What is the real name of the drawing of the water? According to the text as we have it, we're talking about Sho'eva. Did you see that? Zel Chalil Shel Beis HaSho'eva. And the emphasis is on the drawing of the water. However, according to a different text, a different version of our Mishnah, instead of Sho'eva, it should say Chashuva, which means that we consider the drawing of the water to be something very special, very important. We only do it 7 days out of the year. Actually, the Chalil will accompany over 5 out of the 7, 6 out of 7, but 7 days out of the year we have Nisach HaMayim. And as we said before, this is a ritual which hopefully will have an impact on Hashem's Shefa of rain during the course of the year. So this is called Chashuva. Chashuva means very, very significant. Both are correct. No one's making a mistake over here. If he has in our Mishnah Sho'eva, and that's what it's called, that's not a mistake. Because the Pasuk Yeshayahu Novi says, and this Pasuk is a reference, is an allusion to drawing the water for the purpose of Nisach HaMayim. And we see it's called She'iva. So take that word She'iva and call this the Simchas Beis HaSho'eva. And even if your text in the Mishnah reads Chashuva, that's not mistaken. That's not an error. The Omer of Nachman, mitzvah chashuvah. Uba b'sheishes yimei breishis. You may recall that we had a discussion about the shisim, and we said that the shisim, which go down all the way to the center of the universe, the core of the globe, they were created at the time of the creation of the universe by the Creator himself, with a capital H. And therefore, this ritual of taking the water and pouring it on the Mizbeach is very chashuv. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted that water to go all the way down to the center of the globe, and therefore he created shisim below the Mizbeach. So with the pouring of the water on the Mizbeach, the mayim would go down the shisim all the way to the Tahom. So this was organized by none other than the Ribono Shel Olam himself, and that gives it a special chashivah. Now, just to make a simple point here, it goes almost without saying, the whole year round there was Nisach HaYayin. But Nisach HaYayin on Sukkot took on a whole different complexion because we integrated it with Nisach HaMayim. And if you recall, the two had to synchronize exactly at the same time. So we integrate both the Nisach HaYayin, which takes place the whole year round, and the Yayin goes down the Shitin, together with Nisach HaMayim of this unique 7-day celebration of Nisach HaMayim, and there we upgrade the entire process of Nisach. So the fact that Yayin goes down the Shitin the whole year round is not, that doesn't, so to speak, shine a candle to the greatness of the Nisach HaMayim during Sukkot. Tana Rabbanu, we learned in the Brisa. Now, this Brisa is going to record a Shita Rabbi Yossi that we're going to talk about. And Rabbi Yossi is of the opinion that the status of the Chalil that accompanies the Levians' vocal singing is to be upgraded to the level that it will override the Shabbos and Yom Tov. Now, later on, we're going to see that when we speak about overriding Shabbos and Yom Tov, we're discussing a d'Rabbanan, meaning we're not talking about violating one of the melachos of Shabbos. blowing an instrument is not permissible on Shabbos, but it certainly doesn't fit into any of the 39 categories of labor. So there's no violation of desecration of the Shabbos by blowing a flute. When I walk down the street over here on Shabbos and I hear, musical instruments, because, if you're not religious, it's a good day, you're home, you can practice your music. So I always say to myself, don't get so angry, Berzon, because it's not a violation of a malacha d'oraisa. But there's an Issa d'Rabbanan called Hashmas Kol, and we don't play music on Shabbos. In fact, there's a whole sugi about whether these instruments are mukta on Shabbos. We're not allowed to use them on Shabbos for their purpose. And Hashmas Kol is what we call a Shvus d'Rabbanan of Shabbos. Now, generally speaking, the principle is Ein Shvus b'mikdash. Anything that was prohibited by the rabbinic law is for Shabbos. I'm talking about Shabbos, Yisurim of Shvus, is mutter, is permissible in the mikdash. However, before Rabbi Yossi came along, what we assumed was in the mikdash means if it's a critical part of the avoda in the mikdash. And in this case, playing the musical instruments, with all due respect, it's just an embellishment. It's a secondary purpose. It doesn't come under the status of avoda. However, Chalil doches haShabbos divrei Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda. Chachamim omrim, the other extreme, af Yontif einu doches. Certainly not Shabbos, which is more common than Yontif, but even Yontif, we will insist on the Shvus d'Rabbanan, prohibit playing music in the Mikdash on Yontif because of Hashmas Kol. We don't allow playing instruments on Yontif and certainly not on Shabbos. And even though Ein Shvus b'Mikdash, that's only a critical avoda, but this is not a critical avoda. Amar Rav Yosef, machlokes b'shir shel karban. What is the machlokes here between Rav Yossi and the Chacham? Says Rav Yosef, the issue is how important and how critical is the musical accompaniment. And this is going to accompany the karban. We bring the karban, and it's accompanied by A, shiras halavim, and B, the playing of the instruments, including the chalil. So the word chalil here is a generic term for all the instruments. Now let's try to analyze. We allow the avoda on Shabbos, on Yom Tov, and anything that's critical to the avoda and can be integrated in our general definition of avoda overrides the Shabbos and Yom Tov. Says Rabbi Yossi, Iker Shira B'Kli. The mitzvah of karban is that a karban should be accompanied by shira. Says Rabbi Yossi, you're making a big mistake. You think shira means shira b'peh, the actual vocal singing of the Levium, you're making a mistake. The vocal singing of the Levium is part of shira, but it's not the main part of shira. The main part of shira is b'kli. Kleating means with an instrument. So Rabbi Yossi is completely changing the focus of what's ikar and what's tafel, what is primary, what's secondary in terms of the integration of the vocal singing of the Levium together with the musical instrument. Rabbi Yossi is saying, you made a mistake. You think that ikar shira, when the Torah commands us in the midst of shira, what it has in mind fundamentally is the shira salavim. That's not so. It's the music, the symphony orchestra. That's the ikar shira. And if that's the ikar shira, then shira is an integral part of the avodas hakarban. And to the same extent, the avodas hakarban overrides the Shabbos, and certainly Yom Tov, then the shira, which is an integral part of the karban, that also overrides the Shabbos. So the word karban then, as a kiyum mitzvah, which overrides Shabbos, has a broader definition, and its scope includes anything that's part of the avoda, even the shira. Yeah, but you'll ask me, what's the shira? Says Rabbi Yossi, the ikar shira, the primary focal point of the shira is b'kli. It's the instruments. Therefore, avoda is docha Shabbos. So too, the playing of the instruments accompanying the karban is doches Shabbos. Abonan savri ikar shira b'peh. That the real mitzvah, the primary mitzvah, And that which is absolutely essential to the Levium is their vocal singing. And on every day they read and sung, I should say, a kapitel Tehillim. And the Iker Shira B'Peh was accompanied by secondary Shira to embellish the Shira, and that's B'Kli, that's the what we call instrumentals. And therefore the instrumentals ain't a Dochas HaShabbos. Comes along Rav Yosef, and he says the following. You know what? You quoted a Bryce in the name of Rav Yossi that Chalil is Doches HaShabbos. You're making a mistake if you think that therefore Rav Yossi would reject our mission. He says, Shir shall show Eva, Divrei HaKol Simchi V'Eina Doches HaShabbos. Even Rav Yossi would concede to that position that Shira with a kli, meaning the instrumentals, the Chalil, would not override neither Shabbos or Yontif in the case of Sukkot. Why? Because when we're dealing with the whole year round, then we're dealing with an accompaniment of the Avoda, and therefore Rabbi Yossi has the expanded definition of Avoda, and both the Avoda per se and the Shir is Dochas Shabbos. But now we're talking about a different Chalil. We're talking about the Chalil of the Simchas Beis HaShoeva. That Chalil does not have the status of an Avoda, even according to Rabbi Yossi, and it certainly would not be Docha Shabbos nor Yontif. So that Rabbi Yossi could expand the definition of Avodas HaKarban to include Shira B'Kli, but he would definitely not expand the Avoda of Nisach HaMayim to include what we call Shira B'Kli. And basically what the Gemara is trying to say now, in the name of Yosef, is Ushafta Mayim B'Sosam. Anything that's related and connected to the Nisach HaMayim on Sukkot has to be endowed with simcha. We have to accompany the Nisach HaMayim with these musical instruments in order to enhance our joy, our celebration. But it's certainly not part of the Nisach HaMayim. It's a separate independent mitzvah of Ushafta Mayim B'Sosam. And that B'Sosam is going to be fulfilled with instruments, but only during the weekday, not on Yom Tov, and certainly not on Shabbos. Omer Rav Yosef Mina, Amina Ba, Tibaha Pligi. How do I know that the machlokes between Rav Yossi and the Chacham recorded in the Brisa is whether or not the instrumental part of the music is an integral part of the Avodas HaKarban? Isanya, we go into the Brisa, Klishares Shasa'on Shel Eitz. We have a major machlokes about a Klishares. One opinion is going to have it that a Klishares has to be made of metal. And the paradigm of a Klishares made of a metal is the menorah. Another opinion is going to say no. Klishares could be made even of wood and other materials. So we're starting now to discuss a Klishares that's made of wood. Rebbe Posel, Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda Machshir. Now we're going to get down to brass tacks. What are they arguing about? Can a Klishares be made of wood? My labahachi kamifti. Isn't this the way we should understand the machlokas? Man de machshir, according to Rabbi Yossi, who validates a Klishares even if it's made of wood, savar ikar shira b'kli. And now we go back to the time of the Mishkan, and in the Mishkan, Moshe Rabbeinu was the supervisor, the overseer of everything that went on in the Mishkan. And there was a utensil, which was a musical utensil, that's called abuva. And that abuva at the time of Moshe Rabbeinu in the Midbar was actually made of wood. And therefore, Rabbi Yossi says, let's look at the original flute in the Mishkan at the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, and we'll see that it was actually a flute that was made of wood. And therefore, I'm going to conclude that Ikar Shira B'Kli, meaning that the instrumental playing is an avoda. And Moshe Rabbeinu's musical instrument was made of wood. If it's an avoda, then you require a kli sharis. Apparently, a wood could qualify as a kli sharis. Again, the logic. You can make this into a logical syllogism. Any avoda requires a kli sharis. Music, which is called shira b'kli, is avoda. Moshe Rabbeinu used a wooden instrument, a wooden flute in the Mishkan. Therefore, a kli sharis could be made of wood, because in order to do the avoda of the musical instrument, you needed a kli sharis. And Moshe Rabbeinu's instrument was made of wood, so it means that a kli sharis could be made of wood. Uman de Apostle and Rebbe disagrees, Savar Iker Shir B'Peh, which means that the flute that made the music did not have to be a kli sharis, because it wasn't it wasn't a critical part of the avoda. The avoda and the shira that would accompany the korban was shira b'peh, not shira b'kli. Shira b'kli is a nice, zeh kelim yanveu, it's a nice enhancement of the mitzvah, but that's not critical to the mitzvah. And therefore, lo yalfina mi abuva de Moshe, the fact that Moshe's flute, we talk about David's flute, but now we're talking about Moshe's flute, was made of wood, doesn't prove a thing about kli sharis, because you didn't need a kli sharis for the music. Because Ika Shira B'Peh, lo, the Gemara now rejects Rabbi Yosef. Why is that so? The Kuli Alma Ika Shira B'Kli. In truth, Shira is B'Kli. And the musical accompaniment is not just an accompaniment, it's something secondary, but it's really critical, and it is part of the avodah itself. But now we have machlokes about Yalfusa. Yalfusa means derivations. There are various rules and regulations that govern what you can derive and what analogies you can accept and what you can't. The Chacham, the Gemara is suggesting that the machlokes between Rebbe and Rabbi Yossi about wooden kalim for kli sharis, whether they qualify, they do not, and how and can we derive it from the flute of Moshe, is b'danin efshar b'e efshar kamifli. The issue is hilchas yalfusa, the laws and regulations that govern derivations. What happens when a certain kind of a kli was used, but only because there was nothing else possible? That's called efshar. Can we derive conclusions from a situation of efshar? And this is going to be the machlokes between Rabbi Yossi and the Chacham. Can Moshe Rabbeinu's abuva, which is a flute, can it serve as a melamed to teach us, as a model from which we can derive conclusions about the material from which a kli sharis can be made? Man de machshir sovar, according to Rabbi Yossi, danin efshar mi efshar. We can derive a conclusion even from a situation, a scenario where it was impossible otherwise. Now, in our case, when the machlokas is about using wood for a kli sharis, we could have used metal. That was a possibility. So why use wood? You'll ask me, but Moshe Rabbeinu's flute was made of wood. He could have made it of metal. But Moshe Rabbeinu wanted the sound of the flute to be of the highest quality. And there's a qualitative difference between the sound that comes from a metal flute as opposed to that which comes from a wooden flute. And I think even today, most of the flutes are made of wood, if I'm not mistaken. So the Gemara says that since Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to achieve a superior level of musical sounds, quality of sounds, he used a flute that was made of wood, of a reed, of a koneh, and that would produce the most sweet and beautiful sound that you could have. But in the case of other kelim, and there are a host of kelim that are used in the Mishkan and the Beis HaMikdash, then we have to use metal. No, says Rabbi Yossi, done in lo efshar mi efshar. Even though in the case of other services, other than making music, we have a situation of efshar, and you should take a metal kli rather than a wooden kli. Nevertheless, no, we can derive the hechsher of a kli eitz from a case of lo efshar, from the avoda of creating music. And the possible Rebbe holds lo done in efshar mi efshar. You cannot equate a situation like making music to other functions, like, for example, there were forks and there were knives and there were shechting knives and all the different clichés that they use, the mizrak to accept the dam, whatever you have. That's already a situation of efshar. Why use wood when you could use metal? And ain done in efshar mi efshar. Ibai sema, another possibility. Everybody agrees that Shira is bepeh. That's what Shira is all about. And not only that, ain't done in efshar mi efshar. The fact that Moshe Rabbeinu used the flute that was made of wood, that's because it would produce the highest quality sound. That's already efshar. So why then would Rabbi Yossi be machshir using a kli sharis that's made of eitz? What was the source that led Rabbi Yossi to that conclusion? And the answer is, let's go back to the menorah. The menorah is a kli sharis, and the Torah tells you what it's made of. Menorah, how do we derive and what do we derive from menorah? Because in the case of menorah, the Torah says, "V'yasisa menoras zahav tahar," that the menorah should be made of pure gold, refined gold, and that, of course, is a metal. We may be able to expand from gold to other metals in order to be machshir a kli sharis. It doesn't have to be gold. We know that there were many different kinds of metals that were used in the Beis HaMikdash for various kli sharis. I mean, the knife that they used to cut the simonim of the animal was for shechita. That was not made of gold. But we don't have a right to go beyond anything that's similar to menorah zav, namely metal, and include eitz. So once again, we're going deep into the laws of Yalfutza, Hilchas Yalfutza. How do we derive halachas? And there are two possible ways of deriving halachas. One is called klal uprat, and the other is called ribui umit, and we'll try to explain. Hacha b'melech menorah, to derive conclusions from the menorah, where the Torah says it's got to be made of gold, b'klal klali uprate, and should we employ the method called klal uprat? Oh, or no, let's employ a different understanding of the hermeneutic principles from which we derive halachas, and that's called ribuye umiute, and that's going to be the machlokus now between Rabbi Yossi and now we'll try to analyze. Rebbe will prefer klali uprate, a klal and a prat. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda Darish, ribuye umiute. He votes in favor of a ribuy and then a miut. And now we go through it one by one. Rebbe Darish Kloli Prati. We have a klal. The Torah says v'asisa menoras. Period. We're leaving out the word zahav deliberately. So the word menoras indicates a klal, which includes any sort of substance, any material. But then it says after v'asisa menoras zahav tahar. That's already a prat. And now Rebbe is going to apply the principle of klal uprat. And what is the principle of klal uprat? Prat. So the klal allows you to expand the prat, but to look for that which is paradigmic or essential to the prat. And what does that mean? The Torah says, Miksha teos menorah. Once again, the Torah repeats the word menorah without specifying that it's zahav. Chazav v'kolam. So now we have a klal again because we take the menorah at the beginning, the menorah at the end, and in the middle we have the prat of zahav. And we have klal, prat, uklal. When we apply those principles of klal, prat, uklal, the rule is aim iatadana elkeina prat, that you can only expand it to something that's very similar to the prat. Here the prat is zahav. It's a specific metal, namely gold. Ma haprat miforish shel mateches. Gold is paradigmic of metal. Afkol shel mateches. Any other material that you want to designate for a klishares in the mikdash has to be similar to zahav. Because aim beklal mashe beprat, domer ke'ena prat. And therefore, we need mateches, we need metal, to the exclusion of eights. Eights is not similar at all to zahav, but silver, for example, would be similar to zahav. Now we get to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. Darish ribuye umiyute. He prefers a different method of analyzing and deriving halachas from the Torah. The asisa menoras ribua, that's the ribuy. And once again, it includes any material whatsoever, because the Torah only says menorah. Then it says zahav tahar. That's a miut, as if to say that you can only use for klishares that which is made of gold. Then it says miksha teyas al menorah, and the Torah doesn't specify, doesn't whittle it down. So we start with a ribuy, we have a miut, and then another ribuy. And what's the principle that governs ribuy, miut, and ribuy? And that is riba hakol. Riba hakol means that once you have a ribuy and another ribuy, that tells you an expanded ribuy and goes beyond the confines of metal substances to include even eights. But wait a second. So why do we have a prat in the middle? That's very ambiguous, very misleading. You have zav in the middle. My Rabbi kol midi. The ribuy, the double ribuy of menorah is kol midi. So now we have any material whatsoever. And then my mi'et, but why did the Torah single out zav? Mi'et shel cheres. It excludes the lowest level of material that you'd ever want to use in a kli sharetz, and that's cheres, because you know that cheres is full of holes, and when it absorbs the taste, it gets pachtunkin, so this is like the cheapest of the cheapest. If you whittle out something from eights, that's significant, like Pinocchio, like a flute, that's already gives it chashiva, so it's like zav. But the Torah says zav is a miut to exclude cheres. Omar Papa. Now we have about 3 extra minutes here, so I'd love to get a little bit of a head up, because again, we have the pressure of the Friday Shabbos situation. So if we get a little bit ahead of ourselves for Friday, it helps us for Shabbos as well. Ketanoy. The Gemara wants to suggest that perhaps this question of whether Ika Shira Bepeh or Ika Shira Bekli is a machlokas Tanoim. The Sanya we learned in a Brisa, Avdi Kohanim Hoy. Who are the individuals who blew the flute and play the instruments. We have a three-way machlokas. According to Rabbi Meir, they were Kohanim. I'm sorry. According to Rabbi Meir, they were Avodim. Avdei Kohanim. That's like the lowest. Then we have a middle of the road. Shita Rabbi Yossi Omer, Mishpachas Beis Hapgara Mishpachas Beis Sifraya Ume'ema Hayu Shayamasiyim Lakuna. You didn't need a Kohen to blow the instruments, but what you needed is what's called a Yisrael Miyuchas, Mimishpachos Miyuchas, which means that the Kohanim were willing to marry into those families, and they knew for sure there was no mamzerus, and there was no psulim, and there was no admixture of improper blood. Those are called Mishpachos HaMiyuchasas B'Yisrael. He gives you a list of a few of them, and the Kohanim would marry into them. So in effect, you don't need kahuna, but you cannot use avodim. Avodim are not miyuchas. And Rabbi Hananya ben Atignos Omer Leviim. He goes to the other extreme. Avodim weren't used to play the instruments. Yisraelim Yuchasim weren't used to blow the instruments. It was only Leviim. My lava hakamifti. Shouldn't we assume that the following is the subject of machlokas? And therefore, the accompaniment of musical instruments is totally secondary, and there's no need to require a kohen to take an eved. Because ikar shir b'peh. Mandi omar leviim hayu. Now let's go to the other extreme, Rab Chanina. He would be of the opinion because savar ikar shir b'kli. That when the Leviim sang the songs, what was more important was the music than the songs. And the instrument had to be played by the Leviim themselves. That's what the Gemara thinks is the subject of this machlok. So this we're going to stop for today. And tomorrow we're going to continue our analysis of this machlokes about shir b'peh with the word v'tizvara. And as I always announce, that Mitzvah Hashem, tomorrow she will be on Zoom. And last week we started at 8:45, so if that's okay, I think we'll go with 8:45. If anyone has a problem with 8:45, just let me know. Okay then? Have a great day.